Since the rise of AI, nearly 600,000 tech jobs have been lost as of May 2025.
Intel, Oregon's largest private employer, is poised to announce plans sometime this week to lay off nearly 20% of its employees.
But the effects of this phenomenon extend even to government agencies like the IRS, which has cut around 11% of its workforce.
Layoffs underway at the Internal Revenue Service.
The Trump administration has moved to fire tens of thousands of federal workers.
From finance to the healthcare industry, the trend of automation is everywhere.
In the U.S. specifically, there will be 200,000 less jobs on Wall Street and U.S. banks over the next decade.
Most displaced workers belong to the middle class, a stratum that is in decline.
The erosion of the middle class, already one of America's most serious problems, could get much worse with AI if we ignore it.
The problem is that consumption by this class accounts for 68% of the United States GDP. Now, with the threat of artificial intelligence, its disappearance puts the stability of the entire economy at risk. So, how is AI undermining the middle class? And what implications could this have for the overall economy? For much of the 20th century, the American middle class was synonymous with stability, progress, and social mobility. Having access to stable employment, homeownership, college education for children, and the prospect of a decent retirement formed the foundation of an economic model. Though imperfect, this model supported the expansion of domestic consumption and the legitimacy of the democratic system. However, in the past 2 decades, and rapidly since 2020, the emergence of artificial intelligence has begun to structurally undermine the foundations that supported the middle class. While AI offers enormous opportunities in terms of productivity and automation, it has also caused mass layoffs, while devaluing traditional skills and concentrating economic power in a few companies.
We really need to think of these companies as new forms of empire because they're not just amassing business power, they're amassing economic and political leverage.
This phenomenon is not an abstraction. It shows up through stagnant wages and unpaid student debt, with workers turned into freelancers without rights and entire regions left out of digital growth. For decades, obtaining a college degree was the privileged path to a stable and well-paid job. However, the speed at which AI is transforming the labor market has left many educational institutions unable to update their curricula. Technical skills like coding, data analysis, or machine learning are increasingly in demand, but barely appear in many traditional degree programs. In 2024, 44% of college graduates in the U.S. were working in jobs that did not require a college degree, according to a study by the Federal Reserve Bank of New York. Even more alarming, 52% of recent graduates surveyed reported salaries below $50,000 per year, below the historical average for starting wages.
These university grads will have to deal with one of the worst job markets in years. It's always tough to find that first job out of school, but for Gen Z, it's even harder.
Meanwhile, the average cost of a bachelor's degree at a private university reached $39,400 per year, while at public universities, the average was $11,200 per year for in-state residents. This mismatch has fueled the student debt crisis. More than 43 million people owe a total of $1.7 trillion, an amount that has even surpassed the country's total credit card debt. The promise of economic mobility through education has been broken, leaving millions of middle-class workers indebted and underemployed. AI has accelerated a pre-existing phenomenon of corporate concentration in strategic sectors. Companies like Google, Amazon, and Microsoft not only lead the tech race, but also control access to language models, processing chips, massive datasets, and digital distribution platforms. This gives them an overwhelming advantage over small and medium-sized enterprises that cannot compete in efficiency, scalability, or price. In 2025, it is estimated that just 5 tech companies concentrate more than 74% of the global cloud infrastructure market. NVIDIA, for its part, controls 95% of the advanced GPU market for training AI models, giving it control over nearly all AI developers worldwide.
NVIDIA has become the go-to for those kinds of AI chips that are really undergirding this wave of AI tech.
This consolidation reduces business diversity, inhibits decentralized innovation, and eliminates spaces where middle-class entrepreneurship once thrived. Furthermore, the profits derived from this hyperautomation are not being distributed among employees. For example, the average salary at Amazon increased by just 1.8% in 2024, while its net profits grew more than 200% year over year, driven by AI and automation. The traditional employment model with stable contracts, fixed salaries, and social benefits is being replaced by platforms that use AI to assign tasks in real time to millions of independent workers. Companies like Uber, DoorDash, and Amazon Flex operate under atypical employment schemes. Workers are considered partners or independent contractors without access to health insurance, paid vacation, or sick leave. In 2024, it was estimated that 36% of American workers were engaged in some type of freelance or app-based work. Of those, more than 60% depended on this type of work as their main source of income. The median hourly earnings on these platforms were $15.90, but with extreme variations depending on region, demand, and time of day. Many workers reported working over 50 hours per week just to earn the equivalent of minimum wage. What's worrying is that the number of these workers continues to increase.
The gig economy is often considered part of America's broader independent workforce. As of 2022, roughly 58 million Americans, 36% of the workforce, identified as independent workers, up from 27% in 2016.
The use of artificial intelligence in human resources and internal management has transformed labor relations. Automated platforms select candidates, measure performance, and even carry out mass layoffs. In many cases, employees have no clarity about the criteria used and cannot appeal decisions made by closed algorithms. A report found that 43% of Fortune 500 companies use AI in personnel evaluation processes. Of these, 68% implement automated productivity systems that track keystrokes, screen time, or the number of emails sent per hour. The result is a work environment in which employees lose autonomy and bargaining power. The AI revolution has benefited workers with training in technology and who live in urban centers with high connectivity. Cities like San Francisco and New York concentrate more than 65% of new hires in areas like artificial intelligence.
We've been hearing for a while that artificial intelligence could be the savior for San Francisco's struggling downtown business district. And this evening, a new real estate analysis predicts AI companies will rent enough office space during the next 5 years to cut the current vacancy rate in half.
In contrast, states like Ohio or Michigan have lost tens of thousands of industrial or administrative jobs without equivalent new opportunities being created. According to the Bureau of Labor Statistics, only 14% of adults over 50 accessed digital skills training between 2020 and 2024, limiting their ability to re-enter emerging job sectors. As artificial intelligence replaces jobs and lowers wages, a troubling paradox emerges. By weakening the purchasing power of millions, the very companies leading this technological revolution may be undermining the consumer base that sustains their growth. The middle class has historically been the biggest purchaser of appliances, vehicles, insurance, and more. If this class loses purchasing power, the economy risks slowing due to a lack of internal demand. An analysis by the National Bureau of Economic Research indicates that private consumption accounts for 68.3% of U.S. GDP. 70% of that consumption is driven by middle-class households. But now, that class is shrinking.
In 1971, 61% of adults lived in middle-income households. By 2016, that number was down to 52%.
If millions of people lose stable jobs or enter the informal economy, the consequences could be systemic. This scenario could trigger a cycle of automation without demand, in which products and services generated by AI do not find enough solvent consumers. The underlying question is not just how much AI can produce, but who will be able to afford what it produces.
At Economy Media, your opinion matters to us. Subscribe and let us know what you think in the comments below.